You know, one thing I just want to point out about Legion so far that I've noticed since I played in the beta was just how much this expansion really brings back the nostalgic feels and how much it's bringing forth everything that the expansion has to offer to its full potential. Like for example, Suramar City. How the impact of this expansion actually feels like everything, you know, just matters. And that's the way it should be. The Burning Legion is one of the main antagonists in the game, and to see old characters, old zones, old cities brought back to life, it's pretty refreshing, especially if you live through the content when it was actually current content. First of all, we have Dalaran, my favorite city when it comes to all of the hubs that we have been given in past expansions. This city has been around for ages, since Warcraft, and in Wrath, we got to see how the city looks like firsthand. It's pretty awesome to see it having brought back into current content. You got the music that just displays the theme of the city perfectly, and then I don't even know if you guys know this, but you can ask certain NPCs in Dalaran how they are doing and how they have been doing since the war against the Lich King. I mean, it's little details like this that really just makes me happy, because when you tend to play WoW and you kill someone or events take place, you know, years ago, 3 or 4 expansions back, and you don't hear about that person anymore because they're just dead, you kind of question and wonder if they played an impact on characters who have lived through it. But seeing crap like this, man, it just really makes me appreciate the fact that Blizzard put this in. Plus, I'm just happy that Ronin isn't here to repeat that Algalon line like 4 million times. Next off, we got class halls and class campaigns. There will be mild spoilers in this segment, so if you don't want to hear anything about class campaigns because you plan on leveling an alt or alts just for that purpose, then make sure that you skip to the time that is labeled on the screen. Now, when you run through your class campaign, you experience scenarios that send you back to old zones and raids that you would have never dreamed of going back to except for farming mounts and getting transmog. Like my warrior campaign had me travel back to Ulduar, and along the way, I met certain people that we saw in Wrath. I saw Thorim and Odir, and although the scenario was AIDS, like literally it was a damn solo LFR since the mobs had so much health and there were more mobs in there than the damn pit of Sauron. It was still great to run through a scenario that reintroduced an old raid and old characters that were being attacked by the Burning Legion. I mean, Ulduar is in Northrend, and it was attacked so heavily by the Legion that Thorim had to call Odin for aid. And other campaigns, for example the campaign with the Death Knights, things are so desperate that they even resort to allying themselves with Bolvar even though they don't quite trust him, which resorts to DKs going back to Icecrown Citadel and seeing visions of Ner'zhul and Arthas. It just gives the sense that the Burning Legion, they ain't playing around this time. Building off of characters from past expansions, we will now talk about characters reintroduced into the game and the dialogue that they display. If you guys have done dungeons, you may have noticed characters that we haven't seen in years. Ymir, for example, can be found in Helheim, and when we fight him, he says lines that refers back to Northrend. Ashgalm, one of the lieutenants of Ragnaros, now held as a prisoner in the Vault of the Wardens, says this line the moment we engage him.
So long. Where is my Lord of Fire? Why does he not answer my call?
Cordana Felsong, one of the wardens who betrayed us in WoD, is also part of the dungeon. In the Violet Hold, there is a Nerubian by the name of Anubis Set who asks if the Lich King has forsaken him when he dies. Going back to the impact of past expansions, it just seems like in Legion, our past deeds really are brought back to light. We dethroned the Lich King in Wrath, and this Nerubian here in this dungeon right now in Legion is questioning why he can't hear the Lich King's voice. We fought Ragnaros for the 16th or 17th time? I kind of forget. And now this lava dude in the Vault of the Wardens is asking why Ragnaros isn't responding to his call. This is how future expansions should be done, with simple but very meaningful dialogue from NPCs that reference the events of past expansions. Now, we talked about old zones, but how about corrupted zones? In the Emerald Nightmare, not only do we finally get a taste of both the Dream and the Nightmare that for the longest time has only been teased by Blizzard and requested by so many fans, we finally get to see it in game. And not only that, but we get to experience corrupted versions of past leveling zones as well. We get to see Mulgore with Thunderbluff all the way in the back, floating on a piece of land that looks like it was ripped off from the face of the earth. We get to see a corrupted corrupted version of the Grizzly Hills and fight a corrupted wild god, we get to enter the heart of the nightmare itself and confront Xavius, and we finally get to see what the dream looks like when it is finally purified. This raid kind of reminds me of Cataclysm's End Time Dungeon, when we see what the world and specific zones would look like if we failed and Deathwing won, or in this case right here, if we failed and the nightmare pretty much consumed and corrupted everything. It's interesting to have some insight on what the world would look like if for once we lost and the raid bosses won. Now the reason why I brought this video to your guys' attention is because Legion is doing it right so far, especially when it comes to bringing back nostalgic memories, and this is interesting because this is what WOD was set up to do and should have done, but ultimately failed to accomplish. In Warlords, we traveled back to Draenor before it was sundered, before everyone took a sip from Manaroth's lemonade stand, but we just didn't get a real sense of the danger of the orcs or any links between this timeline and our original timeline, because there was basically no content in the expansion aside from binge farming on Apexis dailies. They had the perfect opportunity to revive Shattrath or to show us what Auchindoun was like before it became the graveyard it was in the Burning Crusade. And what did they do? They made Auchindoun the grounds for a single dungeon and turned Shattrath into an Apexis daily spot. Nothing more. Not a hub, not an area that yielded anything beneficial, just Apexis. However, in Legion, we get Suramar City, which is larger than the size of most capital cities and which is the area to a long-ass quest chain, 2 dungeons, and a raid. That is how it should be done. Not an area for Apexis and not a closed-off area with only one opening to a portal into a dungeon, but a gigantic open area you can wander through, a well-structured questline that gives us insight on the Nightborn, and 2 dungeons and a raid to seal the deal. This is the hometown of Jared, Maiev, Tyrande, Malfurion, and Illidan, mentioned in the War of the Ancient novels and also in Warcraft 3 when Maiev is hunting for Illidan, so it's really good to see that it's being brought to its full potential when we finally get to see it in game. And that's all that I have to say in this video, guys. Just glad that things are looking good so far. Glad that the devs decided to bring back old characters no matter how big or how small of a role they played in the past, and glad that unlike in WoD where everything was just like, oh yeah, I'll log on today to do my Garrison Gold dailies and then I'll log off, GG. Now we have actual stuff to do in the game, and some of this stuff brings back to light events that have occurred in the past. Once again, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.